Oh boy, this entry's gonna be good. Welcome back to the vlog. My name is Filip Latocha. As you can guess by the title of this video, we are going to be comparing the Nike React Infinity Run Flyknit 1 versus the Nike Infinity React Run Flyknit 2. I'm literally never gonna say the name of this shoe correctly, like, ever. And basically we're going to be comparing and contrasting the shoes, how they both compare to one another, are there better upgrades on one shoe than the other, and we're just more or less going to discuss my opinions and thoughts on them as we go along with it. So before we get into it, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, because 2021 is going to have a lot more shoe reviews. We're going to start a daily vlog in the process of training for many races that are coming up, including the Super Marathon Binge series, which will be occurring closer to the summertime and whatnot. And yeah, today's topic for this video is to comment down your favorite quote that gets you through the day. I'm going to butcher this one completely, but one of my favorite quotes is by Stephen King. It goes a little something like this. I don't think it's 100% accurate. It's, some people are struggling to look for inspiration, whereas others wake up and get to work. I'm going to try to put the quote somewhere here, and we're going to see how close I got to it. But yeah, comment down below your favorite quote and how it inspires you to do stuff and work, run, and all that. Anyways, yeah, here we go. Let's get into it right now. So, no B-roll for this one. We'll just kind of roll some clips in the series of this video, but we'll start with the Infinity React 1. So, this shoe was released in 2020 as one of Nike's projects per se, to be an injury, to more or less create like an injury-free, injury prevention type of runner. And they came up with this, which I first labeled a Swiss cheese spaceship because of its design from the heel and whatnot. But yeah, let's get into the specs. First things first. So this shoe's weight is about 10 ounces on average. In this case, it is an 8.5, so it's kind of less. It's like 9.6, 9.5 ounces. Puts it about 270, 280 grams if you're measuring it in that sense. Puts it on the heavier echelon of shoes that you can train with on a daily basis. Not a big deal, I suppose, if you're used to it. The heel offset and the drops between the forefoot and the heel are about an 8mm difference. The stack height of the heel is about 30 millimeters and the toe box is about 22. It doesn't give you that high heel feel. It gives it slightly less. And I think the purpose of having it 8 millimeters with this particular design is to have a roll effect with the shoe. Not everyone can do this so-called roll effect. I know I can't because I'm more of a forefoot, midfoot kind of striker. We'll get into that in a bit though. Let's see, what else? Are we missing anything else about this? I don't think so. Let's talk about specs overall. So, we will start with the bottoms and work our way to the top. So, of course, the insole and the rubber is React foam all the way across, which in Nike sense, at least in my experience with it, React has been always a little bit more dense, a little bit heavier as a foam, and it's supposed to provide a lot more cushion, I suppose, and give you more durable ride as you're going along with it. And in this case, it's supposed to be comfortable all the way across the shoe, as Nike has marketed this shoe to be comfortable, injury-free, injury-preventing. And so far, I haven't broken any bones in this shoe, so Nike, you're doing a great job with the Infinity React design, or React Infinity, whatever. Talking about bottoms, so of course, this is the React Infinity Run Flyknit signature design. Not much we can say about it. It is a road running based design for the most part. I'm guessing you can use it on trails if you want. Just tread lightly. I suspect the React foam is pretty durable in that sense, where if you were to hit some sharp rocks or run over some gravel, you wouldn't really take much of a beating or really damage the shoe all that much. This has been primarily 90% road, as you can tell. It's been pretty smoothened out, but it's not completely ripped or shredded in any particular areas like some of my other shoes. So I give this shoe a thumbs up in terms of durability so far. This is about 200 plus miles in, mind you. We're going to remove the pits here for a second so I can actually see what's going on. And then let's go into the upper. So of course, as the name suggests, this is a Flyknit upper. And the good stuff with the Flyknit is that it's pretty flexible to your foot. The questionable stuff I've seen historically is that Flyknit isn't very consistent in terms of feel when you put your foot in and take your foot out. It's just because it's material that's basically just like changing, flexing all the time, right? So back to it. So of course it's just Flyknit here on the upper. It seems to be pretty consistent on the build. It's a little more translucent and less in the forefoot midfoot area, and as you get to the heel it gets a little more reinforced because of course to have stability you need a little more reinforcement, right? And then of course the shoelaces are not very asymmetrical. They're just going straight down the shoe. And of course the thing that people complained about with the laces previously is that they're quite long. We'll get into that when we start comparing and contrasting the shoes. And then the shoe collar, as you can see, it's pretty ridged down here, leaving a lot of opening for the ball of your foot to kind of just play around in. And that has its pros and cons, which we will again discuss when we start comparing. There's no real Achilles heel that's a cushion, but because the shoe is so soft around here with this Flyknit material, it's kind of not necessary. It depends, I guess, what kind of sock you're running with as well. If you don't have one, I can imagine that would scratch you up pretty bad, but I don't really typically run without socks anyways. So that's what's going on here with the React 1. Let's talk about the React 2. So, that was already like heavy. So let's talk about this baby here. So the shoe's weight is on average about 11 ounces, and that puts it about 310, 315 grams as a shoe. That does put it definitely on the heavier edge of most runners, daily trainers that you would have on the market. In terms of stack heights, they are exactly the same as the React 1, where it's a 30mm drop in the heel, 22mm drop in the forefoot, which gives it an 8mm offset entirely. So it seems that the foams and the rubbers are most likely the same between both shoes. As we start comparing, we'll dive into it. In the uppers, of course, it is Flyknit once again, but the Flyknit build is a little bit different. Of course, the midfoot, forefoot area has different styles of Flyknit to reinforce your foot in different places, probably as a test or a solution to previous Infinity React issues that have occurred with the shoe. Probably maybe toes ripping or something like that, I suppose. In terms of shoelaces, again, they are running a little bit long. They are not asymmetrical to the foot necessarily. They are just running straight down the shoe, which, of course, if you're used to that ride, you don't have a real issue with it. The shoelace deal here, one of the major differences, of course, is that they have this Nike signature symbol, which is also acting as an extra shoelace guard and a way for you to basically tie a runner's knot on the shoe, and that's kind of what's going on here with these extra parts. And then when we're talking about the shoe collar, it is reinforced with a little more plush, a little more cushion, so your foot has a lot more snug of a feel here once it slides into the shoe, and that overall gives it a different feel for sure. So we don't have to talk too much more about its specs, because now we're going to start comparing and contrasting and discussing what works and what doesn't as of right now. So this opinion that I'm going to give may or may not change depending on how the rest of my runs are going with the shoe. So yeah, let's talk about it. Basically, I am having a React Infinity run fever. Just having some nice chill runs in these particular shoes. Particularly in the React 2, because I am trying to experiment and assess it some more. So let's compare and contrast. So the rubber and the foam at this point in time, and I guess including the shield guards, are for the most part built exactly the same. If this is wrong, somebody comment it down below, because based on what I've been looking into, it's the exact same bottom. I think people have not been complaining very much about the React foam. I think this is the design Nike's gonna take with for a little while in this particular shoe, because this is what they're marketing the shoe to be, and the only way to have it marketed as an injury preventer is to keep the bottoms and the foam the same. Just keep the principal design more or less the same. So yeah, I think they're going to keep that for the most part the same. The only difference with the shield guards in this particular instance is probably the way they're designed. This is a lot more rubber and like shinier, whereas this one's a little more plastic feeling, but it is still the same principle of heel stabilization with the shoe guards, or with the heel guards in this case. As you guys already expect, there are two major differences between these shoes, one of which is the weight. So the weight, of course, of 10 ounces or 9.5 ounces versus about 11 ounces on average tells you that one shoe obviously is heavier and may have extra parts. Not necessarily extra moving parts in the shoe, but there's been additions to this shoe as a test or an attempt to remediate potential issues that existed with the Flyknit one. So let's talk about what I deemed potential issues with the Flyknit one and what they've done to remediate said issues and other things they've added. So again, I've not put in a huge amount of miles in this particular shoe, but early on, one of the things I definitely recalled being an issue was when you were taking sharp turns in the shoe, it did feel like your heel was going to fly off the shoe, or just fly out of it, I mean, because of how little material and how little guard there was around the shoe collar and the lip of the shoe. Their solution to that was to add a lot more plush, a lot more cushion around this heel, but still give it the same drop. Is it working? I think so. And as a redundancy, maybe another remediation tactic as part of fixing this React Infinity Flyknit series was another issue I had, which was that the shoelaces themselves, there was no place to tuck them when you were running. Otherwise, you would just tie your runner's knot or whatever you did, and they would just sit up here and they would just bounce all the time. If you're cool with that, then you wouldn't have an issue, right? But what I do is typically on the outside of the shoe, I would just try to tuck them into the side of the shoe. But because there was so little collar to work with, it was hard to tuck in those shoelaces, and they would bounce out eventually. It's a minor issue. It didn't like untie my shoe in the middle of the runs, but it was kind of annoying, but it didn't ruin my entire run, right? Their remediation tactic, which they should have probably done in the first iteration of the shoe, was to add, of course, like I said, the insignia, not the Nike logo, but one of their, I guess, Infinity React signature logos as a shoelace guard, more or less, here on the forefoot area of the ankle, obviously leaning towards the forefoot. That's probably what I'm trying to say. And what it's doing now is it enables you to basically have a better lockdown in this shoe, and to have a runner's knot be able to be created with room to still tuck it in. That's what I think is going on here, and I think it's going to work overall. I haven't tested these particular holes in the shoe yet, but I know there are people who are very adamant about using them when tying or using like a runner's knot when they tie their shoes. More power to you if you use it and it works for you. I'm like all in for it, but right now I don't typically use it. I'm sure some people will say it's a game changer if I start using the runner's knot. I probably agree. It's just, yeah, I haven't gotten to that point in running. Like the shoelaces, the way I tie my shoelaces, for that matter, seem to have worked right now. Nothing is untied. They're very comfortable. I can tuck the shoelaces away. It doesn't cause me any sort of issues. Okay, moving on. The biggest difference, of course, between the shoes, as you've probably guessed, is the uppers. So, they are both Flyknit, but they're using different variations of Flyknit to accomplish what they're doing. In my previous experience with this Flyknit, it's very open. It's snug in the right areas. The toe box is a little bit wide, but is it a big deal? Not necessarily for me. But yeah, this is just, you know, the Flyknit was very comfortable. It was breathable. I didn't have any issues with it. Based on what we see with this Flyknit, it looks like they might have, by they I mean Nike, might have been doing some research on the fact that people maybe enjoyed the openness and the breathability of the shoe, but were probably ripping the toe areas of the shoe in the forefoot area, of course, in different experiments. Because as I mentioned in my first impressions review of this shoe, they have a different style of Flyknit running in the big toe box area right there. And my guess is that people have been breaking through the Flyknit material of the original shoe, which is highly likely based on its design. It's kind of just like thin, not really highly reinforced. I can imagine somebody breaking out of this shoe. And what they've, I guess, comprised as a solution was to reinforce that area to prevent your toe from breaking out. The consequence is that I do sometimes feel my big toe banging the side of this shoe. It's not really causing me any issues right now, but it does kind of feel like the Brooks Hyperion Elite, where I turned my big toe black underneath the toenail because of the weird fitting that this Flyknit may be creating. And yeah, we're just gonna see how it plays out. But it's only temporary while I'm running with the shoe. For the most part, it like goes away after a while, and we'd have the comfortable ride that we're looking for. What else? Yeah, of course the Flyknits itself are different between this one and that one, or between this shoe and that one, whatever. And yeah, like I mentioned, the lip of the shoe and the way you lock down the shoe with its shoelaces are also a very big difference between both shoes. In terms of reinforcements, yeah, the reinforcement does feel about the same in terms of the heel structure here. With this heel guard, it's supposed to have that same stabilization effect between both shoes, and it looks like, yeah, for the most part, it's pretty stable. I think that's what Nike was very conscientious about, was making sure that you had heel stabilization, because that's a good place, I think, to start, in my opinion, if you want to prevent injury, is to prevent as much motion in the foot as possible. I think that's as far as we can go in terms of comparing and contrasting without going into like nitty-gritty details. I do just want to kind of give this overlay on the differences, pros and cons, what worked and whatnot. We're not going to go into differences of like, oh, look, the logos are different. That's for other YouTube channels to do. Here we break down the big stuff. No BS, right? As I had somebody previously mention in a different video. So on that note, let's end it there. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, like I said before. Definitely comment down below if you agree, disagree with my assessment. If you have both shoes, what do you like from the 1 and the 2? What do you dislike? Is there anything else you would possibly do to this shoe to make it better? In my opinion, I would try to drop the weight of this shoe a little bit more. But how to do that without removing the extra parts that they've added is going to be interesting, and maybe some rubber, but you can't do that either, right? So that's my only thought with what I dislike with this shoe that I would change. So yeah, we'll leave it on that note, and yeah, I think we're just going to go ahead and review this shoe at 50 plus miles, see how it's holding up. But yeah, thanks again for watching this video, guys, and then yeah, happy running, and I'll see you guys real soon.